as we said earlier, it's our spooky episode, right? It's our Halloween themed. And we said for a long time we were going to do a deep dive into, kind of like I said earlier, I think the best Batman story. That I'm saying that today. The best told Batman story for me, Adrian, is The Long Halloween. So we're going to do a deep dive into this. We're going to talk predominantly about the comic, but there's also a 2-part film that was created recently, so we may go back and forth and kind of compare. I don't know. You've not seen the film.
I have not seen
Okay,
the
so we
film.
might spoil it for you.
That's okay.
But it follows The Long Halloween, so we're really not spoiling anything.
It is planned. It is planned to watch it. Yeah.
Perfect. But we're going to focus mostly on this. Now, I read this like almost every October, and I think you said the same.
Yep. Annually. I always read it in October.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've been doing this since I was 10.
Yeah.
I just can't stop, you know.
Yep. And I don't know about you, but every time I read it, it's like a different story. Because there's so much depth to this. Yeah. Now, Adrian, this was your first time reading this?
First time reading it. I did see the 2-parter.
Yep.
On Showtime. So unlike Hush, it's a little bit more true to the comic.
Correct. Yeah.
As opposed to them swapping things out.
Yeah.
So, but the art styles are completely different.
Yes.
But I like the art style in both.
Because you're pretty critical about art style.
Yeah.
How did you feel about, like, is this the first time you've seen Tim Sale's art like this?
I've seen something similar, so it wasn't shocking.
Yeah.
But it's definitely different.
Yeah.
I mean, he does certain things with texture, and how he renders, and then the color picks up.
Yeah.
So it's different. It's almost like when I was getting used to Miles Morales Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse.
Yep.
And it's like at first you got to kind of get used to it, and then after that you don't even notice it anymore.
Exactly. So. Yeah, it is almost like, I don't know, striking at first. Like when you first see it, things look out of proportion a little bit, you know.
Maybe it's because it looks so different from other comic artists in the same scene.
Right.
It's like in its own lane.
Right.
You know, it was so unique at the time, and it's so unique now. It's just.
Oh, it's definitely held up. Yeah, you look at it now.
I can't imagine the story in another art style, though.
No.
Because it's just, like, so ingrained in that story.
Yep.
I can't imagine it anyone else.
And it's like, I don't know, it's hard to even describe his art style. It's like, Jim Lee's super, super detailed. Yeah. This is not that.
Yeah.
Now, it's very, everything's drawn real cool looking, but there's a lot of, like, just dead space.
Yeah, there's the balance between negative space and his line values and all this stuff is just so it amazes me to this day. It'll never not amaze me. Anytime I see an illustration by Tim Sale, it just blows my mind.
Right.
Even something quick that he'll do at like a convention or something like that is just amazing. Yeah, amazing to me the way he balances things.
It kind of reminds me of how I was taught about graphic design, white space, and but today. Artists, they try to fill up every part of a canvas, and it looks confusing and cluttered. But that's what I like about it, the white space. So it's cool.
Tim Sale can break it down to like your building blocks. How much do you need to sell what you're looking at?
Yeah.
How much do I need to include?
Right.
And it's just, and I will say his Batman is probably one of my quintessential Batmans.
Yeah.
Just the way that he draws the cape.
Yep.
And half the time he's just covered in shadow.
Yes.
It's
like you don't even see Batman till like, I don't know, 4 or 5 pages in. Like you see his shadow first, or you see kind of the side. And I think the first panel that you actually see Batman is when Catwoman's kind of kicking him. It's that double page. Like that's a badass spread as well.
An iconic image for me.
Yeah.
It's an iconic image for it.
I love the panels where it's only a few different colors or like one color but different tones.
Yeah.
Like I think about the snowy scene.
Mm-hmm.
Not Harvey's house, but when Batman confronts Maroni outside of the restaurant, and just like the few different colors there, to your point where you see just parts of, you don't have to see the whole thing.
No.
Or where they're in Gordon's office at night with the lights kind of shining through the blind. Yes,
it's still something that's crazy to me today. I've tried to mimic that.
Yeah,
and it just doesn't fit. Tim Sale's fits.
Yeah,
it just feels right, but it's so. I don't want to say simplified, but it's just. It's hard to describe his artwork, but it is one of my favorites. I'm really passionate about that artist in particular.
Yep.
Well, they make a point about it, like during the killings, everything is pretty much black and white except the holiday gift and the blood. so everything stands out. I mean, well, not everything, but the blood in the like whether it's a Father's Day tie or Christmas wrapped gift or the cornucopia or whatever it is, that's in full color, but everything else is in black and white. So that's pretty cool.
There's that one of my favorite pages in the whole book is that double page spread of Scarecrow. And it's almost all shadow. Yeah. Almost all silhouette. Almost. But in that negative space, it's so cool. It's amazing. The perspective and the weather and everything going on there was just amazing.
I will say, talking about the movie a little bit, Adrian, one of the best kills in the movie that's not in the comic is the elevator scene. When they're in Falcone's or Falcone, I guess, depending which one you're but they're in Falcone's like penthouse, right? That iconic penthouse, and I think it's his sister Carla who's killed in the elevator, and they're like, "Where's Carla? Where's Carla?" Holiday kills her and sends the elevator up, and they all, "Oh, here she is," and it opens up and she's there like dead, and it has one of those kind of like snapshots. That's what I love about the movie too, is just like the comic, you're talking about those murder scenes, right? Or where just a part of it's lit up or colored or whatnot. In the movie, they do something similar with every death. They kind of have like a freeze frame. The movie, it doesn't look like the art style of the comic, but it's very unique as well. Like there's not another animated movie that has the art style like that.
Right. I when I was looking at the movie, I was like, wow. I mean, this is very. There's not like a lot of shade in Batman when he's costumed up. Yeah. But you could see his expression. You can almost feel what he's feeling, especially when I mean, of course, we had to suffer through another, parent getting shot in the alley event.
Of course.
I mean, I really liked the artwork in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely. So a couple of things, like I kind of put some notes about things I love about this comic, and I was thinking to give it a score. I'm like, how do I not? Maybe I'm a little riding the hype train right now, but how do I not just give it a 10 out of 10? Like, is there anything you can critique about this book?
No, for me, no. Maybe it's because I'm too closely attached to
it. Maybe that's it for me too.
It has to be either, if it's not like my favorite, it has to be the second favorite. I mean, it's one of my top. Right. I read it every year. Yeah. It's one of those that you just can't really get out of your head. And it exists in that space perfectly for me.
Yes. Absolutely. What about you, Adrian? If you had to give us a score, the comic.
I'm gonna hover around like a 8.5. Okay. Because I'm kind of really nitpicky. Yeah. Like for example, Batman didn't really solve any problems. He didn't solve the case.
True.
Matter of fact, he had no idea. He was completely off on who the killer was. Also, I mean, he was in this police outfit or whatever with the helmet on, and then he took that off, and he's got like his 15 feet cowl on top of his head. So I mean, how is that even possible? But there's that. I mean, just like little nitpicky stuff. But I did like the fact that it was I mean, this portrays him when he's pretty much early on in his Batman career, but he's already assembled a lot of villains that's after him. Yeah. And especially Grundy. I found that interesting because Grundy, he was able to talk Grundy down from killing one of the guys in the sewer. Yeah. So that means Mickey. That they've had, because Grundy is just out there. Yes. Yeah. So they had some kind of relationship some time ago. Right. So I don't know if they accelerated all of these things because a lot of supervillains are in this thing. But for him to be early on, I mean, he just made a bunch of enemies very quickly. Yeah.
That's why I look at movies like The Dark Knight, obviously very inspired by this. Also, The Batman. Oh yeah. And in that movie, I mean, you think about, to your point of Batman not really solving anything. Batman didn't really solve the crime in that movie. Riddler his plan happened. Yeah. He accomplished his plan. And then, the story is more about Batman going from this whole vengeance guy to more of a hero. And this one was, I think because I agree that he didn't solve the crime. I mean, they just Two-Face, Harvey became Two-Face and Holiday was killed. Yep. But so Batman as a detective failed. But I think this story for me was more about Batman moving away from the small time, like the mob, the actual human villains, and then like that page where all the villains are together is kind of like that transition from you're going from fighting these mob bosses to now actual supervillains. It's to more of the spooky. You got Scarecrow in there. You got because Joker was like a sideline character in this.
Yeah,
which I liked.
Yeah. Right.
Because we've said this before. They lean too heavy on Batman Joker. Everything's gonna be Batman Joker, Batman Joker.
It was, and the way that they portray Joker in this, I love it.
Yes.
Yep. It's just he's drawn so fun.
Yeah.
And he acts like quintessential Joker.
Yep.
Like just well, I don't want another murderous psychopath to be in this city, so I'm gonna find out who.
Yeah, I'm just gonna kill everyone
until I can find out who he is. That's that character.
Yep. Yeah, no, it was well. Jeff Loeb. Talk about writers like, and you were saying, is this my number one, number two? I'd probably right now put this number one. Yeah. My number two would be Hush, also written by Jeff Loeb. Yeah. And now I didn't know that, but this dude has like Hollywood writing credits prior to even writing comic books.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he wrote on a few TV shows, some movies, but I think he writes Batman. Like, I wish he wrote more. He writes Batman better than just about anyone. He understands the character.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you have some writers who, it was a big thing for a while, they would write him as Bat God.
Yeah.
Nothing could touch them.
Right.
Everything is just perfect about him, but he does write him as like a fallible character.
Yeah.
I was thinking, so in this thing, I think somebody mentioned, I don't know if it's Joker or someone else, about how Batman is the reason that all of these criminals are showing up in Gotham.
Yep.
And just like Batman thinks of himself as Batman first and Bruce Wayne second, he kind of denies that he's the reason that these villains, these maniacs are in Gotham.
Yeah.
So it's like he don't believe it, or he's just flat out denying it. But that one scene, tells it all. You got Grundy, Catwoman, who's kind of, on whatever fulfills her. Ivy, Joker, Riddler. You got all of these characters, and these aren't just run of the mill kind of criminals that would be running around town with a gun or a bat or something.
Right.
Ivy has basically powers.
Yeah.
Then Grundy, he's supernatural. Riddler just insane. I don't even know. And when did he become such a cat burglar?
Right.
He's running all up into people's houses while they sleeping and stuff, whispering in their ears and stuff. So he is the reason that all this stuff is there.
Right.
And he's denying it. So that was interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like he stepped in to solve this one problem. Which, and that's kind of what this story tells you, right? He solves the mob problem in a way, like they're put away, but now he, to your point, created this other issue.
Right.
And now he's stuck here, protecting Gotham. It's kind of like that's been one of the things with Batman, right? He's basically stuck. You can't leave. Yeah. And he even takes ownership, like he says, it's my city.
Created a situation where he can't leave.
Yeah.
And also, you brought up a good point. I love the way Gordon is written in this.
Yes.
Gordon is probably one of my favorite characters in this whole series. Because, I don't know, just something about him. He's like the average guy implanted in the story. You can relate to him. You understand his problems with his marriage and just that character. The way he's written in this, I think, is one of the best.
Yeah.
And we had a discussion a week or so ago, a couple of weeks, about Gordon. One, how he's being portrayed in the new Batman, which I don't like.
Yeah.
Because that spins off into all other kind of things that need to be now. You got to shore up that character in this new Batman. But I think just like Alfred and the Bruce Wayne's parents getting killed, I think Gordon is as responsible or should get as much credit for creating Batman as anything else.
Yeah.
Because he did allow him to operate in the city.
Right.
Unlike other commissioners who sick the whole police force out on him. So I think he was a pivotal role in the creation of Batman, or at least how Batman evolved. And he was the only one that was able to talk Batman down from killing the Joker. I don't think anybody else would have been able to do that.
Oh yeah, you're talking about in Hush when he was beating the shit out of Joker in the alley. You're right. That no one else would have talked. Nope.
I love Gordon. He's one of my favorite characters in that series.
I struggle with the on-screen depiction of Gordon. I don't think we've seen a definitive portrayal of Gordon yet. The best was Gary Oldman in the Dark Knight series, but even that was it wasn't like Gordon in the comics. Right. I mean, he was like a militant, like badass, and what I like about this Gordon is what I like about one of the other big things I love about the story is it takes place in year one continuity. You know, so I remember reading about you know, when they were deciding to create this comic. I think they asked Frank Miller, like, what are you doing with those characters? And he basically said, I don't care. Do whatever you want with them. You know, because Frank Miller wrote year one, and it was kind of that new take, this darker, like, take on Batman. Because prior to that was when Batman was pretty goofy in the comics. Like,
yeah, and then I think the Dark Knight Returns really changed that. And then they went ahead and did the year one. I think year one came after the Dark Knight Returns.
I think you're right, yeah.
All right.
But it was all around the same time, like mid to late 90s. So that was where that shift of Batman from being this, you know, laughable, the Adam West version, the comedy, to this darker version. So they asked him, he's like, I'm not doing anything with the characters. Do whatever you want. And then Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale worked on, you were texting me about this the other day, The Haunted Knight. So this is another one. This is not, it's kind of like its own thing. Yeah. You know, but it's, if you look through it, the art style is a lot like, you know, the
it's different Tim Sale. It's definitely different Tim Sale.
Yeah, it is. It's a little different.
His panel design in that is really different too. That was like they did a Halloween special together. Yeah. Every year, right? Yeah. And then they ended up making it its own book. And that is what made Long Halloween, because they made a Halloween special every year, and then they came up with this bigger story around Halloween.
Yeah, I guess they were approached at a convention, the two of them, and they were like, "Do you guys want to do some more Batman work?" Because this did so well. Yeah. And then that's when they kind of challenged them to do this. And I mean, and it was a big deal. You think about it, 13 issues, an issue a month. You know, that's over a year. You're committing to this story for over a year. Yeah. First of all, it better be good. Yeah. Right? You know, I wish I would have experienced it real time. Like, I read this after. Right. You know, that'd have been cool to be waiting month to month, you know, because I don't know about you guys, like, at what point, well, first of all, did either one of you predict, the first time you read this, predict the who Holiday was?
Absolutely not. No. Absolutely not. But, I mean, it was kind of confusing. I had to go back to it a couple of times because there apparently were two holidays. So, and I definitely didn't expect it to be who it was at the end. So, it was definitely interesting. That's what the most that I got out of this, besides the artwork, and that it was just a true detective story. Not that Batman was the detective in this, because he wasn't, but it was like plot twist up to the very end. It was like the whodunit until the very end, and it was kind of shocking. You know, I mean, a couple things didn't really fit together. Like, how does she know that, you know, Harvey was Holiday and then took up the mantle, or was it, or, you know? So it was kind of tricky. Still some unanswered questions at the end.
Yeah, a little plot messiness. And so I guess if you could critique it, maybe some of that stuff was a little messy. Yeah. So maybe I'd have to bump it to like a 9.8. That's about as low as I'm going, Chris. I'm not going any lower than 9.8 on this.
A few more minutes, I'll talk you down a little bit.
Yes, how it works. I'll talk him up. He'll talk me down.
I'm definitely like emotionally attached to the story too. It's hard to remember like what my first impressions of it were, because we're talking back in, had to have been like 7th grade. Yeah. That I read it. Wow. So I have like a long history of it.
I did not. I mean, I think I thought it was Harvey for a minute. You know, I didn't think it was Gordon. So I didn't know till the last minute. And I same with you, Adrian. Even now when I read it, I'm like, I have to really pay attention at the end, because I'm like, wait a minute, who was actually the killer? Like, was it both of them? And I think what they get at is there's 3. I mean, essentially it was Gilda. Yeah. And then Alberto was involved in at least 1 or 2 murders. Yeah. And then Harvey, or Two-Face, was kind of the last one. Right. Right. So, but technically, but I guess you'd say it's more.
And I like that. It does leave a lot of questions at the end of it, which I love when a detective story kind of does that, which I guess is unfulfilling. Right. But I do like when it kind of leaves you with still a couple questions, like, all right, the case is solved. Yeah. Did we really solve it?
What was the kid? Did he actually kill anybody, or did he just fake his death?
He faked his death, but I want to say he killed one person, at least one. Yeah. Yeah,
Was it the first one?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
That's what I'm saying. Is that there's still a couple questions.
You're right. See, even I just read it like this week, and I'm still.
All right. Yeah.
To be continued. We'll tell you next week. But now, one thing I didn't like about the movie, Adrian, is it was similar, where Gilda was the killer, but I don't like how Batman showed up and talked to her and found out she was the killer, and then just walked away.
That's some sorrow stuff. It's like, what are you going to do with that? She's obviously mental to some degree anyway.
Right.
She always has. She was that way throughout the entire storyline.
Yeah.
And then at the end, she lost her husband. She's almost gotten blown up. Right. When they, but then again, if it wasn't for her mental state, them being in the backyard away from the house, they would have been gone early on.
Exactly.
So I think he was just like, you're really not going to do anything at this point.
Oh, yeah, I think it makes sense for him. I just hate that they wrote that in there. Yeah. Like, almost like I like the ending in the comic better.
Yeah.
To where he doesn't confront her and he doesn't even know it's her. Mm. I think, but, that was part of your critique, right? That Batman didn't solve it. So it kind of seems like in the movie they wanted Batman to still solve it, even though he solved it after the fact. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's why it was thrown in there.
Well, I don't call that solving after the fact. It's maybe realization.
Figured it out.
It is realization, but no detective work for. I give it like a 1 on the detective work for Batman. Gordon did all the work on this one, or somebody else did, or the movie just rolled out the way it did.
Yeah.
But also what is the Falcons? They just got their whole family wiped out.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Everybody pretty much. So that was interesting.
Yes. Which I love the mob aspect of this, because I'm a big mob guy growing up. Anyways, Goodfellas is one of my favorite movies ever, and Jeff Loeb did say that The Godfather was a big influence on this comic, and I love how it starts with a wedding. Like almost most mob movies, right? Godfather 1 starts right with the wedding, so I love that aspect. I like the Batman Catwoman relationship in here, and talk about continuity. Hush takes place in the same continuity, right? Mm-hmm. So you kind of see the beginning of their relationship here, and you see it much more advanced in Hush, where they actually find out, they figure out that, he's Bruce and she's Selena or whatnot. But I like this, and it reminded me of their dynamic in the Batman. Mm-hmm. And there was a key point with these two where, they're getting pretty close, and Batman kind of like pushed her off. Mm-hmm. I think it was like 4th of July. And then that kind of led to her leading more towards working with the villains, because to your point, she's in the photo at the end. But if you notice, she's kind of off to the side.
Yep. Right.
There's more space between her, and this is a little stuff about Tim Sale. Like, there's more space between Catwoman and the rest of the rogues. Yeah. But she's still there.
And can you name? That's a good point too. Can you name another story that utilizes the rogues to the point that he does?
No.
He goes into that bucket, and they try to use whoever they can.
Right.
I can't name a lot of other stories where they all like progressively start teaming up like that until the end. It's a great rogues gallery throughout this. Even Calendar Man. I love that character.
Yeah, after this, right?
Yeah.
I'd actually never even heard of him.
No.
Before then, but he was like a 5th tier kind of person.
Yeah.
But they portrayed him as being something a little bit more robust, a little bit more mysterious.
Yeah. Almost like a Hannibal Lecter almost.
Yeah. Matter of fact, they did. You can see some slides. If you actually look at the innovation for the movie, the tub scene was The Godfather.
Yeah.
Right? The Calendar Man was Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah.
So you see particular things like that.
Yeah.
You can see where they got the inspiration from, which is cool. Is cool.
Right. Absolutely. I definitely like Calendar Man. I don't think I ever heard of him prior to Long Halloween either.
Prior to this, no.
So I thought that was a good addition, because they made you think that it could have been him as well.
Yeah.
Even though he's in the damn prison. Mm-hmm. And actually, I was in the absolute version, which I promoted this last week. And DC, y'all send me some more, because I'm promoting your shit here. All right. The absolute versions, it's literally the best way to read comics. Yeah. Dude, the artwork in here.
Yeah.
Like, look at that. Dude, it's as big as my big ass head.
Yeah.
So Anyway, in the back of this, though, they talk about the original pitch, and they actually, the original pitch is in here, and Calendar Man was the original holiday killer.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. I forget whose idea it was to kind of switch it up, but that was like the original pitch when these two decided to work together on this.
That would have made sense because he was like a psycho going around just killing people anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, with his, you know, what they call it? With his garbage man suit on.
Yeah.
It's just interesting, so.
Yeah. I think I said this to you before we started recording. I think the Harvey Dent Two-Face arc, I think this is the best representation we've ever seen of that character.
Yeah, because you really kind of like see Harvey as like a normal guy.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, I can relate to that character. He's, you know, fighting for good. You know, he seems like the everyman.
Yeah.
And especially the scenes with him and Gordon, right?
Yep.
You can imagine that relationship forming.
Right.
And then how detrimental that could be, you know.
Absolutely.
This guy goes off the deep end.
He was like a third tier character in the early Batman days.
Yeah.
When he got introduced, he kind of like
like
fell
a
by the
joke,
wayside, right? But then somebody reintroduced him like in 82, 87 or something like that, and then he became, you know, alongside pretty much all the Batman movies. So
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
I mean, it's a great, you talk about rogue galleries, and I'll say Batman has the best one in comics. But, I mean, it's a great character, Two-Face. Yeah. This district attorney, I mean, you know, trying to fight crime. He at his wit's end. He's going, like, above and beyond and kind of, you know, bend but don't break the rules. And then it almost follows which you see so much in Batman, that one bad day concept, right? Like, he just, at one day, pushed him over the edge.
That one scene where there's Gordon, there's Harvey, and there's Batman. They're all on that rooftop, and they make that deal. Yeah. Like, all right, we'll work together. They make this pact.
Right.
You can imagine that, like how powerful that is, where like the law and this vigilante is coming together, and they're all working on different sides of this coin.
Mm-hmm.
Right. They're like, all right, we will come together and do this. We can bend the rules, but we cannot break them.
And Gordon's mediating.
Yes.
He was like, okay, so I got a basically a lawyer. I got a lawyer and I got a vigilante, and I'm gonna allow them to work together.
Yeah.
And as long as we don't, you know, cross the lines, you know, we can break some stuff, but as long as we don't cross the line, we can do this kind of thing. So that was pretty cool.
That's for me is a powerful scene. You know, that's like a big thing, because Gordon is like this big beacon of justice.
Right.
He is the law.
Right.
To me. So to see him on this rooftop making this
Right.
deal, essentially a deal with someone who works outside of what he can do.
Right.
I don't know. That's a big, powerful scene for me.
Well, in the new Batman, it's kind of the same thing. I mean, he's literally bringing Batman inside the precinct.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and protecting him from, you know, every police in there that wants to arrest him and or kill him.
Yeah.
And then set it up so that he can escape.
Yeah.
You know, so that sends a pretty powerful statement too. But now I got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Who thinks Catwoman went into that warehouse, skimmed off a couple of million before she brought Batman to that joint? I mean, I know she likes her stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, but that was a lot of money, dude.
Probably could have. Oh, that's on that same token, when Harvey and Batman go and they burn down the pile of money.
Yeah.
I just love that scene.
Yes.
And Harvey's thinking, no, if we were two other kind of guys.
Yes,
like,
I love that. He's like, but we're not.
We're not.
Right.
I know. I was just saying. I love that. I love that interaction.
Yeah. It's one of the reasons I love the Batman character, because he's always Batman. He don't waver. Like, even there is like, yeah, but we're not, dude. Let's go.
We're not,
But the thing about it is that he has so much money that he's so accustomed to having that not many things tempt him.
Right.
Obviously, he's got a problem with women.
Yeah.
But, you know, outside of that, right? I mean, not too many things tempt him. So
No. But that Harvey Dent arc, phenomenal. And that rooftop scene, you know, we pretty much saw that in The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
You know, that's I think, you know, me and you go back and forth kind of jokingly about that. Like, I'll shit on The Dark Knight, like, to mess with Adrian. He'll make fun of the Batman. But in reality, I mean, I love The Dark Knight. It's great, you know. Yeah. And I'm that and the Batman, they're like right, you know, 1A, 1B kind of for me. But one of my favorite aspects about The Dark Knight is definitely not Christian Bale or his fucking atrocious voice. It's definitely not that. But I love the parts that the inspiration they pull from The Long Halloween with that dynamic between, because you see that same arc. I mean, I said it's the best Dent's been portrayed best in Long Halloween. Second best is in The Dark Knight for me. His story in that I think the only thing that would have made that better is if that character was also in Batman Begins, so we would have lived with him a little bit longer.
Right. Yeah.
But I love that about that series of movies.
Right.
Cool. What else we got? You mentioned Solomon Grundy. I think it was a great portrayal of Solomon Grundy. Yeah. I love the fight. Like where Batman now, sometimes with artwork like this, sometimes it's hard for me to figure out what the hell's happening. But Batman does shove his finger up his nose, right? Yeah. That is what happens. I'm not confused about that.
Yeah,
dude, talk about a way to fuck somebody up. Holy shit. Dude just said, you know what? Enough. Like, just take this finger right up your big ass nostril. Yeah.
So does that mean Solomon Grundy is pretty much impervious only on the outside?
I guess. Yeah.
So like, if he were to take one of those bat bombs and shove it down his throat, he'd kill him instantaneously.
And even the interaction with Batman and him, where he still goes and he gives him a thanks.
Yes. Yeah.
That is. I love that. Yep. That little thing where he still makes good. He's just you know what? He was innocent in all this. I'm gonna make right on that.
It's almost like, he does things. He looks at the intent and the future outcome of villains and makes a decision about them, like he did with the wife, right?
Yeah.
He's like, she's done. She's already lost so much.
Right.
She's not going to be a threat in the future. So I don't even need to bother with her. Solomon Grundy, there's nothing that you can do about him. There's nothing you can change about him. You either disintegrate him or leave him alone. So he figures out a way to interact with this creature, basically, born on Monday, going down the thing, and just left him alone. So I agree. I think that's cool.
Yeah.
I love the scene with Two-Face and Solomon Grundy when he's still wrapped up. Now, this is a scene that it's so much, I wouldn't say better, but it's so... The movie did such a great job of portraying it because the guy who does the voice for Harvey Dent and Two-Face is phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And I love him talking in the Two-Face voice to Solomon Grundy because he's just saying the same shit. And then, he finishes the little song or whatever, so you were reincarnated? Is that what happened to you too? In the Two-Face voice. It's just great. There's some scenes like that in the movie. You got to watch it. It's phenomenal.
All right.
But I love that use of, and it kind of, think about Jeff Loeb, and you see some similarities, a lot of similarities in this with Hush as well. He doesn't fight Solomon Grundy, but he fights, is it Killer Croc, I think, in the beginning. So it's he has to have Batman fight some big-ass creature, I guess, in the stories.
Right. Yeah. And so it's kind of okay, we need to set the audience up that Batman is the master of this of this whole platform. Yeah. And then we can get into the detective part.
Right.
I think that is, the premise. Yeah. Definitely. When I read Hush, that's what I got from that intro, is that Batman is the master of this world.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. All right, now we can get into everything else. But you kind of set that precedent for that character.
Even in Hush, when he's basically telling the feds yo, chill out, this is my city. Yeah, to the FBI, he is Batman has no fucks to give, none.
And everybody yields.
Yeah,
everybody yields. I mean, he's at base, he's a vigilante, a criminal himself. But everybody yields. So, I mean, the results, I guess, speak for themselves.
And I like how there's no, a lot of Batman stories you have, even Hush, you have Superman, or you have somewhat of that intervention from the rest of the DC universe. This is a very isolated story for Batman. It's just him fighting the mob and his band of rogues, and it's a very solemn Batman story.
Yep. Yeah, there's no Bat family yet. There's not even a Robin, which I like that about this.
I do. I do.
I would be interested to know how much time, because again, it's kind of confusing. He's got, they say his early years. Obviously, it's not year 1, it's year 3, it's year 5. But he's surrounded by so many super villains at this point already. I'd be curious to know how much time went by between, he first putting on the cowl until he ran into somebody like a Superman or anybody. That became part of the Justice League.
Right. Yeah, because there's no Superman mentioned in here. I mean, I think they mentioned Metropolis once, maybe.
I think so.
Saying that someone is from Metropolis, but there's no even mention of Superman. I think, this takes place not long after year 1. I know that. Yeah. Because year 1, you see which is another great comic, but you see that transformation from Bruce to Batman and from Selina to Catwoman. It's almost like the Batman, the newer one, it takes from both of those.
I think so.
with Selina's origin, right? Because she's a little bit, she's not as progressed as she is in the Long Halloween. But yeah, I want to say it's probably year 2 or 3 tops. It can't be much, later after that.
Then a lot's been happening. He's been very active. Very active. One of the, again with the Solomon Grundy. So when he follows this guy down into the sewer, he says the difference between me and you is that I know what's down here and you don't. And then next cut over, Solomon Grundy's got his whole face in his palm of his hand. So it's like how do you be a millionaire, playboy, business owner, Batman, but then he obviously spends time scouring around the city and up under it, right? Figuring out all these locations, so because he pretty much knows where everything is. So I found that amazing too. I mean, I think about the Batman movie, and you think about when he's taking that journal. He's only in year 2 there, right? And you don't see as many villains in that. You have Catwoman's beginning. You got Falcone already. Maroni's already been captured. The Penguin's there. And then the Joker is there, which we learned at the end. So, I mean, I guess to your point, he's Batman. Once he put on that mask, man, he's busy as a motherfucker. Because even in that movie, it's his 2nd year in, and the Joker's already in jail. Right. And the Riddler is the one that's going around killing everybody. So, so you already got, like, the Furious 5 going on year 1, and he's just kind of walking into it. And it only gets worse from there.
Right. One of the things I thought was kind of funny in this is every villain has like significant mental health issues. You're like, this one's like a paranoid schizophrenic. This one's like a homicidal, whatever. Like everyone has like significant mental health issues. Like everyone Batman captures goes to Arkham.
It's almost like if the Joker went out in this series trying to find out who was doing all these killings and stuff, and he didn't like that. I'm surprised he lets any other villain operate in Gotham besides himself. Because him and Batman, they got this incestuous kind of relationship. I'm surprised he just didn't take like more people out. That would probably be an interesting comic. If the Joker goes around trying to take out like every other villain in Gotham.
Right. Was it a you'll probably know this. Was it a Batman animated series episode where Joker was upset about not being Batman's favorite villain or something like that? Or was that a comic?
I'm sure it was.
Like I remember either watching or reading.
There was a comic similar to that. It was Death of the Family.
That's okay. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, that was Joker was upset that he wasn't like the top of the food chain anymore. He said that the Bat family kind of like weakened him. So that was the premise of that, where he like goes through.
Like he was legit mad because Batman would not say that he was like his top villain.
And this in Long Halloween, he's just mad because there's someone else out there.
Like I'm supposed to be the only one doing that. I like the scene when Joker shows up to Falcone's room. With the Joker car and just like gives him like a little nick. Like it's just sick. And that's another one that's great in the movie.
Right.
I love the one where he's taking the plane. Where he's taking the plane. That's a funny scene. Where he's just talking. He's doing the monologue to himself.
Yes.
I thought he was like reading some instructions or something because the bomb didn't go off initially or something like that.
Yeah, no, that was great. Again, that's another one where it was portrayed great in the film. And I think, like you said earlier, the Hush film to comic, completely different. But the Hush takes part of like that DCU continuity, so it has to fit that story too. So they changed a lot, and the movie was good, but not nearly as good as the comic, my opinion. But the Long Halloween movie, like Adrian mentioned earlier, it does follow this very closely. It doesn't, and I think most of the changes are for the better. There's not a lot of changes. You talk about the villains. You mentioned this, Chris, where Jeff managed all of these different villains through these 13 months, but I feel like they all kind of got their shine, right? Like you're talking about the Joker scene and his issue, Solomon Grundy, great portrayal. I mean, Scarecrow, a few times, but I love the Poison Ivy issue, where and it set up perfectly when at the end of the previous issue, Selina, he's getting a rose for Selina, whatever, pricks him, and then next issue, all of a sudden he's under her control, and it's been months. Like that was a cool thing to include in a story like this.
It was like 3 months or something. He woke up, and But it goes to show like Selina's protective nature for Bruce and the Batman. So I found that pretty interesting, that dynamic. Yet I mean, she basically sits by and watch Bruce Wayne with all of these different chicks, right? And Batman with all these other different chicks, because nobody really knows who he is, and she knows who he is, both of his personalities. And she, for the most part, she sits by and just watches all this stuff.
I don't think she knows yet in this one, though. I think she finds out in Hush, right?
I think Selina knows Bruce, Catwoman knows Batman.
Yeah.
And it's still under the guise of, like, they still don't know that those two worlds collide.
And now Batman knows already that Selina's...
I don't think so.
Or he doesn't know either.
I don't think so, yeah.
Okay.
The way that it was written here, because otherwise he would have mentioned it more in his monologues.
That's right.
But he kind of...
In Hush, he knows.
Yes. Yeah,
so at somewhere along the line, But that was cool.
Here, to your point about the detective work, and here it doesn't seem like he knows who anyone is.
No.
Right. He doesn't seem to know who anyone is, other than like certain villains. Like he'll talk about Jonathan Crane, or he doesn't know like the mystery. He doesn't know who the villains are around him. He's still young.
Right.
He didn't get the Chinatown connection either until he was neck deep into those fights and stuff.
Yep.
So normally he would know the criminal, because I'm assuming he just thought this guy was part of Falcone's crew, right? But then he goes to gets caught up in Chinatown. Then this whole other crew comes out, so he didn't know that as well. So that was a whole interesting dynamic. But then who saved his nuts? Catwoman.
Yeah. Speaking of the Poison Ivy, I love that spread too, where they're fighting, where she basically Catwoman jumps in. And all the shit on the tables, like floating in the air behind him, like those 2-page, spreads are phenomenal.
Yeah, I've mentioned the one about Scarecrow.
Yeah,
and it's just like you said, all the double-page spreads. They stay in my mind.
Yeah,
a lot of these images in this book are my quintessential Batman. When I think of it, they're the first thing that come into mind. The way that Tim Sale portrays Batman, it's just very stoic.
Yeah,
and creepy. I don't want to say it's Tim Burton-esque, but it could.
No, but I could see
exist in that realm.
Yes,
absolutely.
You're talking about the rooftop scene, and I love, like, right when Batman gets there, you got the bat symbol behind him. You got Batman. You just see parts of his face, and it's just like, gentlemen, like
it's. There used to be this saying, and it's true, especially in this book: the less you draw of Batman, the cooler he looks.
Yeah.
So the more you fill it with black, the cooler it looks. And Tim Sale is a prime example of that, where the more you play with the shadow, he looks cooler. I also want to mention, like, the relationship between all these characters at the beginning, and then like it deteriorating throughout the story is another, like, amazing component to me. Imagine, like, this relationship between Gordon and Bruce and Two-Face starting out, and then this deterioration throughout a year. You guys spend a year together fighting for the good side or whatever.
Right.
And then to see that deterioration in Dent, like that must be a very powerful thing.
Yeah.
Very, very sad thing for these characters to witness at
Absolutely.
the end of it. And even in the sequel of this, Bruce keeps referencing the stories. Like,
you're right. They do talk about that.
It's getting harder to remember when we were all friends. Like, he references that a lot. So even though for us it's like a quick graphic novel experience, imagine if you're these characters and it takes place over the course of a year. You spend a long time together with these guys, maybe every night, going in and trying to work on the story.
Well, I mean, you also got to think about, Dent. He was fanatic from the jump. When his star witness got killed, he was about to lose it. And I think that was probably why Gordon probably made that little coalition. So he was, right at the edge to begin with. Yeah. So it probably wouldn't have taken much. And then all of a sudden, what happens? Bruce Wayne / Batman goes away for months at a time because Ivy's got him. So there is no connection. Right. There are no answers. Why is this stuff still happening? So I think that part was important too. I mean, that's the other kind of thing too, because if you and I sign some paperwork over to somebody, we're not coming back 4 months later and getting all that shit back.
No,
So that's one of the powers. Like in I guess one of the movies, somebody asked Bruce Wayne, what's your superpower? He's like, I'm rich.
Yeah.
So it was cool, but Harvey, he was about to step out into that abyss anyway.
Yeah.
He just needed it wouldn't have taken much for him to to fall over.
Even throughout the story, Bruce still is, I believe in Harvey Dent.
Yes.
I believe in this city. And then to see that change in him, where he starts to realize, maybe I was wrong.
Right,
you know, that's...
I love the callbacks, I mean, with Jeff Loeb's work. Like, even with Harvey Dent, you think about Hush, when Harvey saved Bruce in that comic, you know, and it's just, it comes full circle. And you think about, like, Dark Victory, the callbacks from there, like we talking about going back and forth, which is a great – that one I put right up. Like, if Long Halloween's number 1 and Hush is 2, I mean, Dark Victory's 3 or 4.
I see them as the same story.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely Long Halloween, you can read that as its thing, but I do see them as the same block. You know?
Speaking of the same story, when Batman was chasing Catwoman, I had like a Hush flashback.
Yeah.
I'm ready to see that bullet break that line and stuff. I'm like, wait a minute, which movie am I watching here? But it was interesting that they pull you know, some of that same stuff, but Batman's always chasing the cat.
He is. Yep, he is. There's also a little spinoff, not a spinoff, but a sideline story with Catwoman, When in Rome. I don't know if you've ever read this.
I have not read it, but I've flipped through it.
And that's another one where it's Tim Sale's art. It's not just like this, but it's phenomenal as well. Like the way he draws Catwoman. And I think I've shown you some of those panels. But that takes place kind of, I want to say it's at the same time as Long Halloween, or because I don't know that Falcone's dead in that yet. I think it takes place at, I could be wrong, but Catwoman ends up going to Rome, and she's trying to figure out if she's related to Falcone or not. And I think she does figure out that she's his daughter. And Riddler goes with her for some strange reason, and it's a fun kind. It's not dark like this, but it's still Tim Sale's art and Jeff Loeb's writing. It's great.
I saw a show with Catwoman. She's on her own. I forget what it's like something like Everybody's Trying to Kill Her or something like that. So it was a pretty interesting show as well. And I like seeing stuff like that. You know, how these characters can stand on their own, but they don't try to flood the universe with them because they can't really stand on their own. But it's always interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think of any villain, you know, we talk about rogue galleries. I think Batman's rogue gallery has the best chance at standing alone. Like then, you know, and the only one I would say the next for me would probably be Spider-Man's.
I
think they have the two strongest in comics.
Absolutely,
you know?
I was going to say, I agree with that.
Yeah, but no, this was a phenomenal book. I mean, there's so many. I can't even think of anything to critique, to be honest.
For me, it's very hard. It's very hard to think of any critique for it. Again, I understand I am too close to it, but the artwork in it itself is amazing for me. The writing is to reread something, to want that experience every year. You know that, and a lot of people. I remember when I was getting into comics, people were recommending Long Halloween to me. Everyone recommends this thing. To like that thing enough where you want to share that experience with everyone. This book came out in the 90s.
Yeah.
You know, it's still one of the top Batman stories of all time. Right. You know, it's aged perfectly.
Yeah.
And it continues to age perfectly.
It's probably been adapted more than any other Batman story.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about Batman Begins, The Dark Knight. You definitely see the influence there. You see it in The Batman. You see the two. I mean, they made 2 animated movies from that. And I mean, you know, Tim Burton stuff came prior to this, but and you've also seen a lot of this in other, like even Batman the Animated Series had a similar arc for Harvey Dent. Like it's been adapted so much, you know, even in some of the games. But to your point, Batman has tons of stories, but this one is just so good that even the most recent one, Robert Pattinson, a lot of elements from this were, you know, and when I every once in a while, every few years, I kind of do this like Batman reread, and I try to like have like my own continuity. Like I'll start with year 1, I'll go to this, I'll read The Dark Victory, you know, I'll get to Hush, and then maybe end up with Dark Knight Returns or something. But like I think for, you know, a trilogy of graphic novels, if you were to start with, you know, or take year 1. This ain't really a trilogy. It's like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
But to me, year 1, Long Halloween, Dark Victory, and then Hush. Yeah. I mean, you're not going to find a better 3 or 4 part story, and they all do. There's a lot of callbacks between the two. Yeah. You know, like you're talking about the Batman Catwoman chased on the rooftop looks just like this. But I think that's a phenomenal, you know, 3 or 4 part series. Like, and I've done that a handful of times. I mean, throw the Killing Joke in there. Yeah. I mean, you really want to go to Killing Joke and add some, you know, Red Hood. we're good.
Yeah.
You got everything you need.
That's it.
But no, I love rereading this every year. I'm gonna do it again next year, and I actually think as we're sitting here talking, I'm probably gonna bust out this Dark Knight or Dark Victory and go through this. This is another great one. And what I love about both of these stories is it's kind of origin stories for a handful of characters. But I look at the Long Halloween as like the Two-Face origin, and then you got Dick Grayson, Robin origin, and Dark Victory. Yeah. Which there's another murder type mystery in that one, which I thought was done. I mean, Holiday was a little bit better because of the Falcone thing, but that one was another great, 13-part mystery. Yeah. I love that.
It's also, Long Halloween is a very grounded Batman story. Yes. I would actually recommend it to like my mother.
Really?
Like if you were gonna read a detective story, I think it's, even if you remove the superhero element of it, it's a good detective story. It's a good noir.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Universe, the mob being involved in it, and if you remove like the supernatural aspects of it, like the supervillains and everything, it's still a really enjoyable story just on its own.
But even those supernatural aspects are somewhat grounded, if that makes any sense. Yes, Scarecrow riding the fucking horse coming out of the Arkham Asylum is a little strange.
Is a fantastic scene.
But it looks phenomenal. Yeah. And I love how it's always, especially in Jeff Loeb's stories, it's always thunder and lightning in Gotham.
Yes, wow. Yes.
Like they just must have the world's record for most thunderstorms a year.
Always over Arkham.
Yeah. Always. Yeah, especially over Arkham, yeah. But no, phenomenal. Love it. I think I'm going to settle on Adrian 9.8. All right. You can't talk me down anymore.
I'm good. I'm good with that. Yeah. I'll do. I realize I'm like overly critique, so I'm gonna stay with my 8.5. Okay. So I'm good with that.
Right. Yeah. What about you, Chris? Give it a score.
I'd probably land hard on it. I'd give benefit of the doubt 9.5.
Okay, 9.5.
I'd land on that. But Tim Sale passed away this past year. Yeah. It was a really hard thing for me to grasp because it was like I will never. Comic books and comic art has been a huge thing in my life, so I had to grasp it. Like I will never get to meet this person. There's as much Tim Sale Tim Sale artwork in the world as there ever will be. There will never be more Tim Sale art, and so this book I have so much attached to. Yeah, it's just it exists perfectly for me. It's one of those things I'll always go back and reread. My kids are gonna read it. Because for me it's essential reading. It is. I actually think. There's a lot of I've taken writing classes and stuff. If you were to teach this in a curriculum, you know what I mean? I think you get a lot out of it.
Absolutely.
As comic books, not as a superhero medium, but as like an actual literary, it stands on its own. It's just a great story.
Which I think is why it's reached that level. I mean, it's the most popular Batman comic. You talk about how many different Batman actors and directors, and they always talk about reading this. I remember reading that Christian Bale had a copy in his trailer or whatnot and would read it, this in like year one. And I mean, it is essential Batman. Yeah. I said this about Hush. If I wanted to give someone someone asked me, hey, give me a comment that really, for someone who knows nothing about Batman, what should be the best comic? What would be the best comic to start with to learn about the whole world? I give them Hush, and this would be right there. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the only reason I give Hush first is because it has Bat Family, all the other stuff. But for starting, I'd go shit. If you don't want to hear year one, if you don't want to read year one, start here. Yeah,
I still want to. One of my goals is to own a page from that. Yeah, from that story. I just want some piece of that. Yeah, because it's such a big part of my life. I still want something from it.
I started collecting the original issues. I went down to Sargent's a few weeks ago. I bought like a few of them, and I'm just, I just want to have all 13 in plastic and
I get that.
Original printing. Yeah, I probably have more of that comic than anything else. Yeah. I got this version, the absolute version. I'm about to have the regular. I got the movies. Wow. But it is, phenomenal. Love it. So, I'm sticking up.
I got to go through my, you guys making me want to go through my box of comics. Yeah. I had my son's inventory like twice. I think I got probably 700 comics that I don't even remember what they were now. So you're pulling on some strings, man.
You got to break them out the vault, dude.
Right?
You have to.
Yep, absolutely. Adrian, was this better than Black Adam?
I would say yes.
Okay.
Because the power of a comic, of a graphic novel, is that you get to sit there and marinate on the colors,
yeah,
and the art styles and the shadows. Movies is just flash, you know, in front of you, and it moves on and be like, oh, I like that, but why do I like that? Yeah. They did a better job in Into the Spider-Verse with the moving background, things like that.
Yeah.
So, but with a graphic novel, you get to sit there and it's textile,
right?
And you feel it, you see it. You can just sit there and look at this one image for as long as you want to, kind of soak it in, and then go on. So that's why it's better than Black Adam. Outside of that, I don't know.
What if we could get Tom Cruise to play Batman?
In the
he's
too
Halloween.
Short. You can't be a short king and play Batman.
Nah.
Nope, that one I'm not. You can have a tall Wolverine. You can't have a short Batman. Is that fair? We all agree on that?
Yes.
Sorry, you know, what are you gonna do? Yeah. But well, there you have it. There's the deep dive into the Batman, into the Long Halloween. 9.8. Adrian, you said 8.5. 8.5. 9.5 from Chris. Chris, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you
for
this
having segment.
Me. Always.
What's going on with the first night, bro? Next issue anytime soon?
Keep an eye on chrisboyleart.com because very soon it's going to be available through that, and I'm working on the next part of that as we speak. So
awesome.
A lot of cool stuff is coming along the pipeline. So
well, check out the first night when it actually I'm jumping the gun. The first one's not even available for like everyone to purchase yet. I'm an insider.
yeah. It's almost publicly available.
Got it. So I'm telling y'all, I'm asking about the second one. They haven't even read the first one. Well, you want to read the first one?
If the first was available through a Kickstarter campaign, but it will be available through my website very soon.
Perfect. Well, as soon as it is, you'll let us know. We'll let everybody know here. It's a great start. I'm interested in, can't wait to hear what comes next. Great art. So we're talking about art styles. Love it. Yeah. Story's great. Did you check it out yet, Adrian?
Spoil art.
I have not checked it out yet. I've been otherwise distracted.
Yes. Absolutely.
Spoil art on Instagram.